Redline logbook here for the Gray Man Suman Dark's Fall arc. And we start where we left off with Alan's group in China. Alan's currently scanning around the area with his cursed eye, and he sees 6 Akuma. And he doesn't even give Robbie a warning. He just immediately says duck, points his gun right at Robbie's face. He then immediately has to jump down so he doesn't get blasted, because Alan immediately starts just blasting all the Akuma. He kills 5 of them, and then the 6th one pops out of the water, but Robbie takes care of it. And of course, Robbie's pissed off that Alan almost shot him in the face without warning. The justification that Alan gives is basically he wants to reduce the amount of destruction he causes in the area, which is understandable, but you still gotta give a man a warning. And so the two of them end up fighting because of this, like literally like hitting each other. That's when Lena Leah pops out from the sky, thanks to her dark boots, holding onto a cat, which apparently took off with Tim Campy. Apparently it tried to eat him. Her landing broke up Alan and Robbie's fight, which is great. On the other hand, now Alan has to scold Tim Campy for easily getting caught by a cat, because Tim Campy is literally their only guide to General Cross. And Tim Campy's response is just to stay silent, just ignore him. Crawley starts complaining that they haven't found Cross yet. I do feel bad for Crawley. I mean, the man joins the Black Order, and his first mission is going on a wild goose chase across Europe and Asia, all the way through China. And they're getting pretty close to the edge of China, actually. They've been traveling through the place for 4 days now, and there's still no sign of Cross. That's when Crawley begins to ask, is Cross even alive? There's a chance that he could have been killed. And Alan's response is, no, even if you kill him, he won't die. Lena Lee then realizes that Alan is being kind of sluggish, grabs his arm that has his innocence in it, and pulls down his sleeve. And his arm is crumbling, literally falling apart. As you can imagine, everyone freaks out about this because an arm isn't supposed to fall apart. Alan says it's no big deal, he's just a little tired, he's overusing his weapon. But that's not what it looks like when you overuse a weapon. That does look like when you were literally rotting away, like your flesh is just turning to dust. And the whole reason this is happening is because Alan is fighting way more than everyone else, because he has his cursed eye, so he's able to see the enemy long before anyone else does. And Lena Lee, once again, was upset about this, and Alan said he'd do better before, but apparently he hasn't learned his lesson, and is still focusing on doing everything himself. And this causes Lena Lee to start crying. We then jump over to a group of other exorcists that Tiki Meek killed, the ones that we already knew about that were brought back to the Black Order, and of course Suman, the missing exorcist. And Suman is currently begging for his life, as he watches as Tiki Meek removes the buttons from his dead friends and starts to juggle them, complaining that they're the wrong names, that they weren't on his list. There's a small jump forward in time where Soma is currently waking up, and he's currently being taken care of by an old man, a woman, and a little girl in China. The old man tells the little girl to go out their well and get some water for him, and when she's outside, all of a sudden she hears this big bang, and from her home is this monstrosity, is the only way I can put it, and it basically flattens her house, so most likely her mother and grandfather are just dead. We then jump back over to Alan's group. Apparently a few days must have passed, because Alan is currently eating steamed buns at a shop, while Tim Campy's holding up a piece of paper with Cross's face on it, and in Chinese it says, "Do you know this person?" And the shop owner says, "Oh yeah, I know that guy, he's the red-haired man. If you buy 10 more steam buns, I'll tell you any information you want to know about him." Unfortunately, he says all this in Chinese, and Alan's British, so he only speaks English. So he has to then call over Lena Lee for help. So apparently General Cross has been in a brothel this whole time. He is the new lover of the head mistress of the top brothel in the town. Alan is in no way surprised that this is where Cross has been the whole time. Everyone, of course, is excited that they finally found Cross and their mission's over. And once again, Alan is about to vomit. That's when a giant bald woman steps out from the brothel, threatens them because they shouldn't be there. And when they try to explain the situation to her about General Cross, she immediately grabs Alan, picks him up, sticks her tongue out, and reveals that there's a cross on it. And she informs them that they are actually followers of the Black Order, and she informs them that they need to go around back to meet the mistress. They are invited in, and they meet Anita, the owner of the shop, an extremely beautiful woman who clearly is a professional prostitute the way she's dressed. At the same time, she very much looks like a professional pirate. I say that because it's just a perfectly balanced aesthetic of the way she looks and her subordinate looks, and it just says that these people are pirates who are also prostitutes, as a way to cover up the fact that they're criminals. On the other hand, Cross is not here. Yeah, apparently he left 8 days ago, which is the funniest thing to say out loud, because 8 days. Oh, wow. You travel all that time just to be 8 days late. That's like spending an entire year planning your revenge on someone, finding out they died 3 days ago. We then jump over to, I'm assuming, the next day, because it's daytime, and Lena Lee is now currently on call with River, and she's telling him that they're going to get into a boat as soon as it's ready and then travel to find where Cross is. She warns him that because where they're going, they won't be able to connect with a phone, there's a chance that they won't be able to communicate for a while, and she just wanted to give them their last update. And River's like, okay, in that case, would you like to talk to your brother? And her response is, no, just let him sleep. Leonie purposely called when her brother would be asleep because she just wants him to rest. In fact, she just can't take it anymore. This war is just breaking her down slowly. And the fact is, she's just holding it together with everything she has at this point. Alan is on the sail of the ship, looking out into the ocean, saying to Tin Campy that their master is just over the horizon, and tomorrow they're gonna go get him. And he swears that if his master really is dead, he'll never forgive him. And the reason why he comments on Cross possibly being dead is because we then flip back over to the night before, where we get the rest of the explanation of Cross leaving 8 days ago. Auntie explains that Cross's ship was sunk. When asked if they actually have proof of this, she tells them, well, yes, the remains of the ship actually floated back to China, and it was infected with a curse. Obviously, the Akuma virus, which means Cross was most likely attacked by an army of Akuma, killed a bunch of them, but at the same time, they sank his ship. And unfortunately, they weren't able to recover Cross's body, and so everyone just assumes Cross is dead, including all of Alan's team. The only person who believes that his master's still alive is Alan. He declares openly that his master would not drown so easily. And Anatia, who clearly loves Cross, actually begins to cry, saying, is that so? It's clear this woman has been waiting for even an ounce of hope that her lover is alive, and Alan just gave it to her, which is fantastic for her. And so she decides that it isn't just them going to save Cross, she'll go too. She will take them across the sea where Cross was headed. Cross's destination was Edo, Japan. We then go back to the present, where Alan is still on the mast of the ship, about to fall asleep when his cursed eye activates, and he sees Akuma coming. And it's not a few, it is an army. An army so large that they black out the sky. It's an absurdly large army that they have no chance of overcoming. But hey, the fight's here, so they got no choice. Alan starts firing to the crowd of Akuma. He kills a few of them. But the crazy thing is that they just keep flying past him. They're completely focused on something else, and they're going to kill that. On the other hand, a few of the Akuma actually do notice that there are exorcists below them, and they actually attack the ship. Alan is then grabbed and picked up into the sky. So now a proper fight breaks out. Most of the Akuma are, of course, still going towards whatever their target is, but a few that are attacking the ship notice there are just regular humans there, and they immediately start attacking them, including Anatia. She survives because she has a talisman machine on her and creates a barrier that is able to block even attacks from a level 2, which means the Black Order's technology when it comes to talismans is improved, since that level 2 clan Akuma was able to shatter one with ease. The fact that this one can block a level 2 means that, yeah, the Black Order's figuring out stronger and stronger defenses for their supporters, which is good because normal humans should not be in a situation like this, surrounded endlessly by Akuma. After finishing her call, Lin Li is currently going back to the ship when that giant wall of Akuma blocking out the sky just fly right past her. She's like, what the hell is going on? Obviously, they're not attacking her because they're focused on their main target. But that's when Tin Campy shows up, smacks her in the head, and then points at Alan, who's currently being dragged through the sky by an Akuma. She then immediately realizes he's in trouble, activates her innocence, jumps up, completely cuts down the Akuma with her boots, and then grabs Alan before he hits the ground. And while they're floating in the sky, thanks to Lena Lee's dark boots, that's when the monstrosity that was back with Suman appears, and all of the Akuma then freak out and head straight towards it. Alan then asks, what is that thing? Lena Lee obviously recognizes it, but didn't say anything. Instead, she lets go of Alan's hand and activates the second ability of her dark boot. The first ability is to create tornadoes. The second ability is to continuously build up sound waves underneath her feet, which then allows her to move at the speed of sound. She then re-grabs Alan's hand and just rockets forwards towards the monstrosity. Faster than any Akuma can move, faster than Alan can even breathe at this point. He just has to hold on tight and pray that he does not get separated from her. Now that they're right under the monstrosity, they can get a better look at it, and currently all the Akuma are attacking it. But at the center, where the heart of this monstrosity should be, instead of a heart, there's a human. It's Suman, and he looks like he's in absolute agony, completely suffering at this very moment. Lena Lee, of course, recognizes Suman, and she starts to freak out, screaming and saying that he has become a fallen. We then go back to a flashback when Lena Lee was a little girl, and she's witnessing scientists from the Black Order experiment on a little boy. This experiment is basically the scientist trying to add innocence to this boy who has no synchronicity with innocence whatsoever. He's not an apostle. What he is the relative of an apostle. And so because he's relative of an apostle, the scientists believe that he has some chance of becoming an apostle himself. And so they have Hibraska add innocence to this child, and it is complete failure. Hibraska then tells them it's not working. His synchronicity with the innocence is crashing. She needs to remove it, but they order her to keep going. She follows orders, and the boy becomes a monstrosity as well. He becomes a fallen. And the way you become a fallen is basically when your synchronization with innocence hits below 0, literally going into the negative. You're literally punished because you're trying to sin against God himself by doing this. She tells Alan the experiments are now prohibited, and so no individual is allowed to go through this experimentation ever again. But that's not the problem here. The problem is Suman is an exorcist. He is an apostle of God who can use innocence. In fact, he is a paramecia type just like Alan. There's no way he could become one of the fallen. Lena Lee is able to mostly get control over herself and then starts to call out to Suman. He can't hear her. All he can hear is the bombardment of Akuma attacking him. And so the Fallen defends itself by firing out giant lasers out of its shoulder holes because it doesn't have arms. And it just obliterates all the Akuma around it. And this explosion is massive. Okay, the surrounding forest is also completely annihilated, and parts of the cliffs of the mountain range just collapse. Back at the port, Robbie is able to see the mountain range just covered in red, and it's because the entire thing is just on fire. Yeah, so this attack was just absurdly powerful. Probably the most powerful attack we've ever seen in all of D. Gray Man. Even after all the Akuma were wiped out, Soma's Fallen continues to just obliterate everything around it. The forest, the mountain range, everything just gets destroyed constantly by laser fire after laser fire. Lena Lee then asked Alan to help him because they're the only ones there who can do anything for him. She's generally scared for Suman right now because she asked Hrabowski about the boy who's experimented on, who turned into a fallen at the Black Order, and she refused to give any information. So Lena Lee literally knows nothing about what happened to that boy, what's going to happen to Suman, and so she's just desperate to save him right now. That is her number one goal at the moment, is saving Suman. Alan agrees, and the two of them use her dark boots to jump up to Suman, while another wave of Akuma that are just blocking out the sky still. Seriously, this is an absurdly large army. Comes from the port to attack the Fallen again. Now that Alan and Lena Lee are right next to Suman, she tries to call out to him, asking if he recognizes her, if he's in his right mind. And Alan's like, okay, what we have to do is just rip him out of this thing. And so he's going to do that, but that's when he sees the little Chinese girl from before, and she's currently just crying out for help. And so Alan grabs her and pulls her out. The Fallen then has these weird tentacle things come from it, grab onto Alan, and start to drag him in. Lena Lee then goes to save Alan, but he's like, no, take the kid. He tosses the little girl to Lena Lee, and Alan is dragged inside of the Fallen. While falling into the Fallen, Alan is then bombarded with every single one of Soma's memories, which I mean everyone. From the moment he is born to this current second, Alan sees everything, and it's so much information so fast, it physically hurts him. Alan is then able to pick through his memories while they're flooding in, and he realizes that the reason why he became a fallen was because Suman betrayed the innocents. On the outside, Lena Lee is calling out for Alan when she realizes the little girl isn't breathing anymore, and she has to perform CPR. And as she's about to do that, the Akuma attack, and she realizes she has to prioritize saving the girl over getting Alan back. Obviously, to Lena Lee, this is an abandonment, but she's not really abandoning him. She's doing her job. She's saving a civilian. But Lena Lee is just sensitive that way, so she takes off to save the girl. While inside of Suman, Alan can feel all the Akuma being annihilated by the Fallen, and you can also hear Suman screaming in agony and pain. And then he realizes that the innocence is actually burning up his life force. That's why it's so powerful. That's why it's doing so much damage, because it's literally using Suman as a power source. And the innocence isn't doing this to kill the Akuma or to protect itself or anything like that. It's doing this to kill Suman. He wants to kill the man that betrayed God. Alan then activates his innocence, smashes his way to Suman's innocence so he can then stop it. He's basically begging for it to stop trying to kill Suman, stop trying to kill their friend, their comrade. And he goes to actually to cut off Suman's arm to separate it from the innocence, but he's then ejected from the Fallen. After he's been shot out, he then runs over to Suman, and then he tries to then calm him down, saying that he's here to help. But Suman doesn't recognize him. He doesn't recognize anything. In fact, Suman is filled with grief and hatred and anger at this point, because obviously the innocence is trying to kill him, and he very much is angered at the world. And so he starts saying, curse you, curse you, curse you, curse you. He basically wants to curse the world. He wants to destroy the world. Versus Alan's already been cursed, so this is actually kind of traumatizing to be told that he should be cursed again. But second, Alan does not have any response to someone who wants to destroy the world this badly, who wants to destroy everything this badly. Alan is actually stunned by the sheer bloodlust Suman has right now. And this is when we realize that Suman has some control over the Fallen, where it does follow his orders, because it is still technically his body, his innocence. And so when he says destroy everything, the Fallen then starts to move towards a small village in the mountains. And straight up, it just starts attacking the village, like killing innocent people. Alan tries to stop Suman, and Suman tells him to die, you exorcist bastard, because once again, Suman has fallen at this point. He just hates everything. He actually bites down on Alan's hand, and he almost rips it clean off. That's how hard he's biting down. While trying to free his hand, Alan is trying to negotiate with Suman, saying he's going to save him from the innocents. All he has to do is just not kill these innocent people. There's no reason to go this far. So Alan's trying to save everyone. He's trying to save Suman. He's trying to save the villagers. He's also trying to prevent his hand from getting ripped off, and Suman isn't hearing any of it. He just actively just wants to kill and destroy everything, including Alan, the man that's trying to save him right now. As Suman is obliterating the village and killing a bunch of innocent people, the remaining Kuma army that was sent to kill him realize that he's killing a lot of people, and they're like, he's acting like a Nakuma now. But we have orders to kill this thing, so we should just do it. And one of the other Akuma says, no. Let him kill all the people first, and then we'll destroy the innocents. Yeah, so the Akumas, once they hit level 2, are actually pretty intelligent, and also as cruel as ever. Suman finally lets go of Alan's hand. He jumps down, and then he activates his innocence to its maximum power, and his claw hand becomes gigantic. It literally is able to grab the entirety of the fallen. So his arm is basically the size of an entire skyscraper at this point. Suman fights back, trying to rip itself free. That's when Alan says, I will not let go. I will save you. And then slams the fallen into the fucking mountain, pinning it down. So yeah, Alan was finally able to stop Suman from killing everyone. And now he can focus on saving Suman. After getting back to the town, Lena Lee, of course, gives the girl medical attention. Once she's stable and safe in a hospital, she then immediately calls her brother to explain the situation with Suman, and he tells her the darkest news she could possibly have been told at that moment. A fallen cannot be saved. Once they transform, they will either be killed by the innocents or killed by an Akuma. There is no surviving this. Suman will die. The rest of the science team are listening to this conversation, and that's when Johnny pipes up and says that he's friends with Suman. He's constantly playing chess with him. And while Suman would get mad whenever he lost, and he wouldn't even talk to Johnny in the cafeteria afterwards, every time he comes back from a mission, he would always play another game with Johnny. Because two are friends. They like to hang out together. And so Johnny is constantly begging River what is going to happen to his friend. And River's only response is, he's going to die. There's no saving him. There's nothing we can do. I mean, this is just the harsh reality that Johnny has to accept. This is the harsh reality that Lena Lee is going to have to accept. And when I say Lena Lee is going to have to accept this, I mean her brother gives her the order that when Suman dies, his innocent will go back to its core form, and it's her job to take it back. As you can imagine, hearing that stuns Lena Lee for a second, and of course she then goes ballistic on her own brother, yelling at him about just having her watch Suman die. Lena Lee isn't like her brother. She can't just be clinical when it's necessary. Not that he doesn't break down every time he has to make these cruel decisions. I mean, we see it constantly, but Kamui is very good at keeping his cool when he's in front of other people, including his own sister, but Lena Lee can't handle it. Lena Lee then tries to bargain one more time for Suman's life, saying that he's our comrade, we need to save him, and that's when Kamui says, he's not our comrade anymore. Yeah, so the reason why the Innocents decided to turn Suman into a fallen isn't just because he begged for his life from the enemy, it's because he literally betrayed the church and killed so many innocent people. The reason why that there was over 100 deaths in a single day was because Suman called up the order, asked for the locations of certain exorcists and searchers, which was a standard thing that people do all the time, so no one thought of it. That is, until moments later, after he was given the information, all these people were slaughtered. So Suman, to save his own life, sold out all of his comrades. So over 100 people are dead because Suman traded his life for theirs. And this is why the Innocents turned him into a fallen. And all we hear is Lena Lee over the phone say, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. And that's when we move back over to Alan and Suman. Alan is still holding down the fallen, begging Suman to listen to him, saying, you wanted to live this whole time. You have a daughter, remember? It was in your memories. You joined the Black Order not because you wanted to, not because you wanted to fight, because your daughter was sick and there was a way for her to get her medical treatment. And so you became an exorcist for your daughter so you could live and see her again after the war. So basically, Alan is trying to remind him why he wants to live, and then he reminds him what he did to live, which is to sell out his friends. Once again, Alan saw all of his memories. Alan is basically trying to explain to him, you gave all their lives for your own, so now that you're just letting yourself die now is unacceptable. You traded their lives for yours. You should live. You should force yourself to live. This is what you did. And talking about his daughter and what he did as a traitor, apparently snaps Suman out of it and begins to actually listen to Alan for the first time, instead of going like a mad beast. Alan then activates his innocence one more time, but it fails. He could feel something break inside of him. Lin Lee was right. He overextended his innocence to the point where his arm shattered. His arm goes back to its normal human arm, and then just extreme pain just floods through Alan's body to the point where he's screaming in agony. Unfortunately, now that the Fallen has been released, it's still doing what its final order was, just destroy everything, and so it starts to obliterate the village once more, just burning people alive. Fortunately, because Alan was able to get back into Suman's head and bring him back to reality, Suman is actually able to see what he's doing, and he actually hears a little kid crying out for their father, who is lying there dead thanks to Suman, and that's when Suman remembers the last image he has of his daughter, who was crying as he was taken away to be an exorcist, because once again, once you join the Black Order, you just are completely separated from your family. They have to make sure that you are never turned into an Akuma, so you're erased from history, basically. Suman then screams out his daughter's name, Jamie, and then smashes his fallen body into the ground, finally stopping his rampage. Alan sees this happen, but he can't do anything because the pain in his arm is so intense that it's literally paralyzing him to the ground. Alan just can't fight anymore, and he actually begins to pass out from the pain. That is, until Tin Campy shows up, starts slapping Alan in the face. Doesn't work, so he bites him on the ear, wakes him right up. Tin Campy actually starts to, growl at Alan, basically forcing him to stand back up. Alan's like, okay, I'll keep trying, don't worry. Alan walks his way over to Suman, and he introduces himself properly to him, which is funny. And then Suman says, I'm probably going to die soon. And when that happens, the monster will also die. He's talking about the Fallen. He then says he just wanted to see his family again, and he's sorry. Basically, he's trying to find redemption at this last moment and just accept his death. But Alan has no interest in letting this man die. He then activates his innocence again, and this is painful for him. Alan straight up says, I heard something rip, but I don't care. And he forces his innocence to activate. And you can see his arm is literally beginning to fall to pieces as it is turning into its claw form. For a moment, we could see Suman's daughter, Jamie, what she's doing right at this moment, and she's currently receiving treatment from her doctor. And she's, of course, thinking of her father, hoping that she'll be able to see him soon. That's not happening. Alan then gives his normal hand over to Suman and tells him to bite down and not let go. He's going to cut off his arm, removing the innocence from his body, so this way he can be saved. Suman is stunned by Alan's kindness at this moment, but unfortunately, the innocence still wants Suman dead. And so as soon as Alan shoves his arm into it, it immediately starts attacking him, just blasting him with energy that's just irradiating his body. Suman then begs Alan to stop, just let him die. He betrayed his friends, he betrayed everything. He let innocent people be killed for his own life, and Suman is basically just begging Alan to stop, to not give up his life as well. Alan then looks at Suman while being just fried at this point, says, I'm alive, and what I pray for is for people's happiness, and right now I'm praying for your happiness. And he once again offers his hand over to Suman and tells him to bite down on it so he can save him. Suman then starts crying, bites down on Alan's hand, and says, I want to live, I want to live. Alan severs Suman's arm, freeing him from the innocence, and then rips him out of the Fallen. The Fallen disappears, big flash of light. When Alan gets back up, he sees Suman is still alive. He runs over to him, he's so happy, and then he realizes Suman is still alive, but he's brain dead. At this moment, Alan just completely falls into despair. He looks at Suman's innocence that's now in his hand, and he begs it why. Why did this have to happen? Alan then starts to bargain. He tells Tin Campy to get Lena Lee and them, so this way they can bring Suman back to the Black Order. If Suman's body still alive, then maybe his mind can be brought back as well. Basically, Alan is just desperate at this moment, but that hope is then immediately ripped away from Alan when Suman's body literally just explodes from the inside. And standing behind Alan is Tiki Meek. When Alan looks behind him, he realizes that it's a Noah, and that's when Tiki Meek says, come tease, and then a bunch of butterflies just fly out of the remains of Suman, and they fly directly into Tiki Meek's hands, where they're basically absorbed into what looks like a black hole in his hand. And after that, one big butterfly then appears out of the hole and just laying in Tiki Meek's hand. And this butterfly has this weird skull for a face in the center. And then Alan demands what he did to Suman. Did he kill him? Tiki Meek then realizes that Alan is the kid that scanned him in the card game and actually tries to talk to him like he knows him. But of course Alan doesn't recognize him in his dark form. He then asks him, hey, are you Alan Walker? Which clearly means that Tiki Meek is currently looking for Alan Walker. He's one of the extras that was on his list of people to kill. Alan slapped Tiki Meek across the face, and it actually does hurt him because innocence is able to hurt Noah. The funny thing is that was literally all Alan could do. His body is completely exhausted. He overused his innocence. It's literally crumbling as we speak. And once again, Alan then demands, did you kill him? And Tiki Meek's response is, well, we're enemies, so why wouldn't I kill him? Realizing that Alan is completely defenseless in this moment, Tiki Meek then decides to, okay, I'll explain this ability of mine. This is Tease. It's a golem created by the Millennium Earl. It's in the butterfly form because of his own taste. And I basically just planted them inside of Suman. and it slowly feasted on him so it could then reproduce. So yeah, that means that Tikimik was going to kill Suman no matter what. It didn't matter that Suman betrayed everyone, including God and the innocents. He was going to die no matter what, because Tikimik is just that kind of bastard. But this butterfly thing is not Tikimik's ability. This is just a gift given him by the Earl. His ability is to pass through solid objects. He then shoves his arm straight through Alan's chest. Of course, Alan doesn't die, but he then explains to Alan he can decide what he touches when he wants to. And he actually puts his hand around Alan's heart and begins to squeeze it a bit. And he actually begins to taunt Alan, explaining him to this is how he actually killed a few of his friends, and this is how he's gonna die. Alan then just glares back at Tikimik, unafraid. And that just completely knocks the wind out of Tikimik's sails. He goes from being sadistic to just being annoyed at this point, where he's like, oh, fine. Usually I don't actually do that myself, because that would get my gloves dirty. I actually use teas to take a bite out of their organs and watch them die slowly. He then tells Alan it's too bad that he had to meet in his black form first. He wanted to play cards with him again. But since he is in his black form and Alan is an exorcist, he's got to die. Starts to choke out Alan, asking him over and over again, are you Alan Walker? Are you Alan Walker? Because he really wants to find Alan Walker to kill him at this point. Then one of Tikimik's playing cards then floats up. It's not a playing card. Seems to be another one of the Earl's Akumas, but this one is referred to as the list holder, which is a dude in a cell with a bunch of names carved into a wall, and the list holder then goes, yes, this is Alan Walker. So it apparently is able to identify literally anyone that's been written on its walls by the Earl. So whatever the Earl knows, I guess this card knows. And the card literally tells Tikimik to delete Alan. Tikimik doesn't even hesitate. Once he got his confirmation that this is Alan Walker, he then immediately touches Alan's arm, and it completely just shatters. Just falls clean off of Alan's arm. And Tikimik reveals that the Noah have the ability to destroy innocence. And every single innocence that he has collected from other exorcists up to this point, he has destroyed. Now, because the Earl made Alan Walker such a priority target, he assumes that Alan's innocence might be the heart. And so, he figures if he destroys Alan's innocence, this might destroy all innocence. That'd be great for the Noah. And so, he actually points over to Suman's innocence, and he says, okay, kid, I'm going to destroy your innocence, and if your innocence is destroyed, and Suman's innocence then disappears, that means you have the heart. But, if you don't have the heart, I'll just destroy Suman's anyway. So let's do this. Alan then starts to scream at Tikimik to stop over and over again, but once again, Tikimik doesn't give a shit. He's a sadistic bastard. Goes straight in, hits Alan's arm one more time. It completely turns to dust, leaving only the innocence behind, where Tikimik then takes it in his hand and then crushes it, destroying Alan's innocence. Tikimik then looks over to Suman's innocence, and it's perfectly fine. And he's like, damn, I thought this was actually the heart. Then the card once again says, delete, delete. He's like, yes, I know. I will take care of Alan in a second. Calm down. Even though his innocence just got destroyed right in front of him, and he's in an extreme level of shock and pain, Alan is still able to keep his mind together, and he orders Tincampy to take Suman's innocence and get it back to the others. Tincampy starts shaking its head no, because it doesn't want to abandon Alan. It loves Alan. Alan's his master. But then Alan points out that if he doesn't do this, if Tincampy is destroyed, they can't find Master Cross, and so Tincampy has to escape. There's no choice. Tincampy then regrettably accepts Alan's words, grabs Suman's innocence, and flies off. Tikimik then says that was a wise decision. He then uses his psychic link that also Rose had with the Akuma, and he tells them to go after a golden golem. The Akuma, of course, have to follow the orders of the Noah, but they were then given orders by the Earl. So they're like, wait, our orders were to kill the fallen, so we can't really focus on that right now. But then Tikimik says, well, the innocence from that fallen is with the golem right now. So if you go and kill the golem, you can get the innocence. So no, this actually is your job that you're ordered to do. All the Akuma then celebrate, saying thank you to their master, and then fly off to attack Tincampy. At a certain point, Lena Lee finished her conversation with her brother, runs back to the ship, and then begs Robbie to come with her. Now, she has no idea that there's a Noah there or that Alan is in trouble. What she's trying to do is save Suman. She just assumes that Alan is there with Suman, trying to help him. So what Lena Lee is trying to do is in vain at this point. On the other hand, Alan is still technically alive, but once again, he can't fight back, and Tikimiki is about to do one of the most cruelest ways to kill a man. Tikimiki then orders Tease, his butterfly, to make the tiniest hole in Alan's heart, so this way he slowly bleeds to death. And what he says is he doesn't even want Alan to physically suffer. He does want that, but what he wants Alan to do is to emotionally suffer. He wants Alan to realize that death is coming for him, and as it comes for him, he gets more and more afraid of death, and to have Alan's last moments to be filled with just dread and fear and just emotional suffering at that moment. So once again, Tiki Meek, piece of shit. Tiki Meek then does what he always does. He removes one of the buttons from Alan's coat, but then he sees the playing cards he gave him back when he was in his white form, takes the playing cards, and just throws them all over Alan's body, just as a way to mock him one last time before he leaves. And that is the end of the arc. If you enjoy this video, subscribe, give a thumbs up so you can enjoy more D. Gray Man and other anime things. Thank you, and have a great day.